So we're just going to cut that tab off of the top of the drain plug there. I'm going to use a little hacksaw. Just saw it off. Sweet. So it makes it flat, but I'm going to make it even flatter so that anything that I mount to it will set flush. So I'm just going to grab a piece of rough sandpaper, get it till there's no ridge left. All right, that's close enough. It's got a little thing, but I don't want to get it too thin. So now we get the 1/4 coupler nut, and it will fit down in there. But I want to make sure that when I drill my hole in this, that I'm getting it fairly well centered. So I'm going to put the nut in there. And then I have here, this is a 13/64 drill bit, and it fits in the 1/4 perfect. So once that's in there, that I'm going to drill that through. It won't mess up the threads as long as you go straight. But that will give me a perfectly centered hole because the nut is sitting in there, if that makes sense. And then I'll drill it, take this all out and drill the top hole back to a 1/4 inch so that it fits a 1/4. So that should have almost perfectly centered that hole, which looks pretty good. Now I'll get a 1/4 inch drill bit and drill that hole out. Gotta hold on to it, or put it in a vise, or grab it with some pliers, whatever. All right. So now we have the hole drilled, tab cut off. Now we just need to glue this in there. And I'm going to use some 5-minute epoxy. Doesn't take much because there's not a lot of room between the nut and the all right, that's plenty. All right, so now for the tricky part. I have to get the epoxy on the coupler nut and get it down in the hole without getting any epoxy down in the threaded part. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put grease on this 1/4 screw, and I'm going to use that to push that in and protect the threads, and the epoxy won't stick to the grease, hopefully. So that is the plan, man. Get some epoxy down in the gap, make sure it's all full. Another thing that's putting the screw in the other side will do is make sure that that's centered in there. So we'll get it started. It's hard to get your fingers in there because it's such a tiny little space. Here we go. There. Now we just have to let that cure, and that nut will be in there permanently. All right, now that the epoxy has dried, I went ahead and I ran a 1/4 screw up through the coupler, and then I put a nut on the top. And that's one way that you can get a camera mount mounted to the bow of your boat. I don't have an extension which I would need an extension to raise it up a little bit above the drive. But I do have this part so you can see how it works. So this is just a little ball joint for a camera shoe. You screw that in just like that. Because a 1/4-20 is exactly the same as is this part here that goes into pretty much every camera, and all of there's adapters for your GoPro cameras too. So I'll show you guys installing that on the boat. All right, now that we got this all put together, you stick that back down in the hole and just screw it in like you normally would. But it doesn't have a tab on it any longer, so you're gonna have to either really wrench it down by hand or maybe even grab some pliers and snug it down, because you still want this gasket to make a nice seal so it doesn't get any water inside. Alright, so I got some pliers and I'll just snug it down just to make sure it's nice and tight. Yeah, so now that's completely waterproof and you have a little camera mount off the bow of your boat. I'll put this little ball joint on here. There we go. Alright, so I got a little action camera here. Lower that down. Screw my camera on. Snug that up. And now I can adjust this camera back towards me, or film the bow of the boat. I have a pedal drive, so I'd have to raise this up a little bit with a little extension arm, but just showing you guys how it could work as a camera mount or a light mount or whatever kind of mount. All right, and if you want to mount like a light bar or something else to the bow of the boat, and you don't want that 1/4-20 bolt sticking up all the time, you can take that nut out, or that bolt out. Can't keep it in frame and do it. Don't really matter. But that coupler nut is glued in there, so it won't come out. Come on, it's pretty long though. And then we'll go ahead and put this back in here. Cinch it down. And now you have a threaded hole in the bow of your boat to mount a light bar to. And that's what I use it for most of the time. That's why I came up with this idea in the first place. So let me get the bolt. So I take this bolt, run it down through my light bar mount and into that threaded hole. And now I have all of that thread in there to mount this bar to. There we go, nice and snug. And I'll plug that in. And now it's ready to go. Pretty sweet, right? Let me turn it on for you guys. Not that that's what this video is about, but you know, lights on kayaks are cool. Ta-da! Now I have lights on the bow of my kayak.